Today, I'd like you to join me on a journey, or more correctly, as we say in Swahili, a safari. I've always dreamt of going on safari, ever since I was a child. Long before I ever became a photographer, I had the dream. Long before I ever began photographing wildlife here at home, I had the dream. It always seemed to be there, locked away somewhere below the surface of whatever it is that makes up the mess I call my brain. The story of how it finally came about has been told and retold many times. But for those who don't know me or the story, or who may be checking out my channel for the first time, forgive me if I repeat it briefly just one more time. And for those who have heard it before, indulge me for the sake of clarity. It was November 2014. I'd finished photographing a wedding in Drogheda, which is about an hour from my home here in Tallaght, when I had a massive heart attack. I spent the next 5 weeks in a coma with only a 1% chance of survival, and during which time doctors said I literally died 3 times. But you know the old story, you can't kill a bad thing. So I'm still here, and not only that, but I did actually get to go on safari. I came home on Christmas Day, at the start of what was to be the long road to recovery. And having been given such a loud wake-up call, I started a bucket list, at the top of which was a safari to the Masai Mara in Kenya. Unlike most people who start a bucket list before they die, I waited until after I died to start mine. The advice I was given was to spend 2 years to properly recover, during which time I could plan my trip and then go the following year. Well, having been asleep for 5 weeks and supposedly dying 3 times, waiting another 3 years didn't seem like a very inviting proposition. So I started a program of rehab in Tallaght Hospital, which I continued at home. And at 10 to 5 on the afternoon of October 28, 2015, just 11 months after that fateful day, I set off aboard Turkish Airlines flight TK1978 on my once-in-a-lifetime safari. Now, for those of you who might be interested in going on safari, or maybe just thinking about a safari to the Masai Mara, I will, if you're interested, at some stage in the future do a more detailed episode on how I went about organising my trip. But for today, I'd just like to give you a brief idea of what my first day in the Mara was like. As I said in last week's episode of Wildlife Wednesday, when I spoke about elephants, I was picked up from Old Kiambo airstrip by my driver cum guide Petro, who allowed me as much time as I wanted to take pictures on our way to Entum Camp, because I was his only passenger. The other people with me on the flight from Nairobi were all heading to other camps, so I probably got to experience a little bit more than most people would when first arriving in the Mara. The first animals we came across were a couple of zebras grazing lazily away by the side of the track, one of the many tracks which crisscross the reserve and form the road network used by the safari jeeps. As far as I know, there are no paved roads within the reserve, and in my opinion these tracks are more in keeping with the natural aspect of the place anyway. I have to admit that when we came across these zebra and having no idea of what to expect I'd see while in the Mara, I started machine gunning the camera, just in case I never saw another one while I was there. Little did I know. A few minutes later we stopped by a river, and I have to admit, I'm not sure if it was the Talek or the Mara, but it gave me my first opportunity to get some hippo shots. And I have to tell you, When you get close to these giant water horses, you realize what scary creatures they really are. Driving on a little further, we came across a small group of wildebeest. Too few to my mind to be called a herd, but my first encounter nonetheless with one of the animals I had always considered iconic when I thought of the Masai Mara. Just a little further on, we came across a topi. This was the first time I was to come across an animal I didn't recognise, but it wouldn't be the last. And I would meet many other animals in the coming days that I had never even heard of. There was one in particular which I became very fond of, and which I would get my first sighting of before Petra and I had reached the camp on this my very first day, and that was the eland. But there were a couple more animals I would see before I saw him. The next animal we saw was a Thompson's gazelle. This was one animal which I had hoped to see, and which I did see almost daily. But the one I saw on this first day was alone and had disappeared almost as quickly as he appeared. But I did get a couple of photos first. Just a little further on, we came across a female lion and 4 cubs, and we got some really great views of this little group over the next while, which gave me opportunities to get quite a few nice pictures. This was turning into a great safari already, and I hadn't even reached the camp yet. The area we were in at this stage was not the flat expanse of the plains, but a rocky outcrop with high grass, bushes and trees, giving good cover to any animal who wished to hide. And it was there I got my first glimpse of a female elephant and 2 calves as they emerged out of this cover. This was a really special, never to be forgotten moment, and believe me, I had many never to be forgotten moments on this trip, but this one holds a special place in my heart because it was my first time ever to see an elephant in the wild, and I love elephants. We then got another lion sighting, this time a lone female who decided to take a rest very close to us on a grassy patch amongst the rocks. I actually think she was part of a pride which may have included the female lion with the cubs, even though we never actually got to see them together. I then got my first ever sighting of the aforementioned eland, an animal I knew nothing about, but which I became very fond of over the next few days. And finally, just before reaching the camp, we came across a lone giraffe, and I was lucky enough to grab a couple of quick photos before it disappeared. So as you can imagine, my head was spinning with thoughts such as, if this is what my first few hours in the Mara are like, what will the rest of my time here bring? The answer to that question can be found in the many photos I've shared in my book From Sunrise to Sunset and here on my YouTube channel. Before I leave you to watch today's slideshow, I'd like to point out a couple of things. The species featured are in the order we came across them on that first day. With some animals such as the Thompson's gazelle, I have included only 1 photo and only 2 of the eland, because the other photos I have of them from that first day are almost identical and it would be pointless to include them. So on that note, I'll leave it to the slideshow and I hope you enjoy it. Well, thanks again for watching Wildlife Wednesday, folks. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode, and if you did, I'd be grateful if you'd give it a like and subscribe to my channel. And when you do, don't forget to ring the bell so you're notified every time I upload new content. Till next week, stay safe, stay healthy, wash your hands and wear a mask where necessary, while continuing to maintain social distancing. We're not out of the woods yet. Take care, folks. Bye.